I'm going to address 6 more disability comments and questions I've received recently in this video. And to spice things up some, I'm going to start replying to some of the ridiculous and angry comments. And boy, do I get a lot of those. Hello, I'm John Foster. I'm a medical doctor who does Social Security disability exams. I've done over 1,500, and as usual, everything I say reflects my own opinions based on my own experience and study, and not the opinion of the Social Security Administration or any other medical bodies. Now, the first question is neither angry nor ridiculous. It's actually a good question, and a person wrote that they were nearing the end of their rope at their job because of problems related to their medical conditions. And they wanted to know, should they apply now while they're still working in anticipation of not being able to work in the near future? And the answer, unfortunately, is usually no. If you're working full-time at the time of your application, Social Security likely won't even consider it. There are some exceptions, and if you're in one of the exceptional circumstances, I would seriously consider consulting a Social Security disability attorney. Here are some of the exceptions. The first is if you're working part-time under what Social Security calls substantially gainful activity. In 2024, that means you're earning under $1,550 a month. So say you're only able to work part-time and you're making $1,000 a month, then yes, you could apply for Social Security disability. Another exception is what they call return to work trial. Say you've stopped working because you just can't do it anymore with your medical issues, and you take several months off and you're feeling a little better and you decide to try going back to work again. And you do go back to work, but again, you just can't make it, and after a month or two, you have to leave. In that case, that may help your application because you've demonstrated to Social Security your willingness to work, but the fact that your medical impairments prevent you from carrying on in a job. The third exception is somewhat complicated. That's if your employer is making special allowances for your disability. Say you've been with a company for a long time and you've gradually becoming more and more impaired, but your employer really likes you and wants to help you, so they make special exceptions for you. Maybe you're allowed to take more breaks. Maybe you're given an assistant to do some of your duties. If you can get a statement from your employer stating how much it costs the firm to provide you with these special allowances compared to an employee who had no impairments, and that reduces your income to below $1,550 a month, you may be able to apply while working. Again, it's pretty complicated, and if you're considering applying while working, I would strongly suggest that you consult a Social Security disability attorney. Now, here's a ridiculous comment. A person wrote very angry because they'd applied multiple times for Social Security disability, and each time they've been denied. So they got so mad that they went back to work full time and then received a letter from Social Security stating that their latest application was approved. Well, it sounds to me like Social Security made a mistake with the last application, because if this man went back to work full time, he is not disabled. Question number 3, and again, not silly or angry, a person wrote that applying is stressful, and I couldn't agree more. It can be incredibly stressful, and I have a lot of sympathy for the people that I see. It's complicated, it's tedious, it's drawn out, it's anxiety provoking, and often people are going through all this rigmarole while they're sick or in pain or both. So yes, just do your best. It is stressful. Question number 4 was about psychological conditions, and I've covered this before, but medical doctors doing what are called consultative examinations, or CEs, do not go into detail with people who have psychological problems. In that case, Social Security will assess the psychological issues one of 2 ways. If the person is seeing a regular therapist, like a psychiatrist, a counselor, and they can send the records into Social Security, that's often all Social Security needs. If the person isn't seeing someone regularly for their mental health problems, they'll arrange for what's called a psychological evaluation. That's where the person meets with a clinical psychologist who goes into detail and evaluates the person's mental health issues. So consultative exams are for physical problems. Psychological evaluations are for mental problems. Although, if when I'm doing an exam I see obvious signs of severe mental illness, such as a patient hallucinating and hearing voices while they're in the exam room with me, or a patient who appears extremely anxious, I'll make a note of that because I know that will help their disability application. The 5th issue that I've run into is something that's a bit of a pet peeve for me, which is, I'll ask the patient like maybe about lifting, and they'll say, well, my doctor says I can't lift more than 10 pounds. In most cases, that is a lot less helpful than the patient thinks, because in most cases, the doctor was just guessing. Unless the doctor had a series of weights in their exam room and observed you lifting weights from lightest to the heaviest that you're able to lift, the doctor is just guessing at what you can or cannot do. And I would much prefer if you actually went out and tried lifting or walking or whatever and see what you really can or cannot do based on your condition and limitations. The 6th question was again a diagnosis question, and I get so many of these questions. The patient will write, I have condition X. Can I get disability? And the answer is, I have no idea. It depends on how severe your condition X is and how severely it limits your ability to work. And this was a person who'd had a heart attack, and they wanted to know if they could qualify as disabled based on a heart attack. Well, all heart attacks are serious, but there is a tremendous variation in outcomes from heart attacks. The vast majority of people who have heart attacks survive, although a significant percentage die. And I had one patient, a man in his early 50s, who had a heart attack, and after he recovered, after a couple of months, he had no symptoms, no limitations whatsoever, and he went back to his favorite pastime, which was playing competitive tennis. Obviously, he wasn't disabled in the least. Then again, I've seen patients with severe sequelae of heart attacks, what doctors call cardiac cripples, people who are crippled due to heart disease, people who can barely make it from their bed to the bathroom because they get so short of breath, or can't even go up a flight of stairs because they get chest pains, from their heart, or are weak, or pass out, or have dizzy spells all the time. In the vast majority of cases, it's not your diagnosis that qualifies you for disability. It's what limitations that diagnosis it causes for you, and those limitations must be related to your ability to work. I recently did a video on the few diagnoses where just having the diagnosis will get you approved for disability, but those are a small minority of disability claims. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and as always, remember, if it happens, it's possible.